Here with Hogan Medlin, and you're in your last week or so of being student body president, but you've been pretty active lately. I've seen you've done a lot of work with the Board of Trustees. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you've been working on there?
Yeah, so we had our last Board of Trustee meeting last week. Like you said, there are 8 days left in office. Today is Monday the 28th, and so Mary Cooper will take office a week from tomorrow. On April 5th is her inauguration, which is kind of amazing to think about how fast it's gone. But you're right. So last week was the last Board of Trustee meeting, and it was not a quiet meeting by any chance. It was certainly, it had a lot of things on the agenda that I think grabbed a lot of students' attention, which is a great thing. I love it when students send emails and thoughts before and after the meeting about how it went and whether or not they felt they were represented, that kind of thing. So on the agenda we had an update from Vice Chancellor Crisp about Greek life and Greek culture and the ways that his office is hoping to address that in the future, which received, I think, some interesting feedback from some of the trustees. We passed a resolution to in the year 2012, raise the minimum GPA requirements in order for an organization, a Greek organization, to recruit its members. That was actually a well-received motion, if you will, from the trustees. However, there was some issue with the way that Trustee Perry addressed the Greek students, and I think that the response from the student body has been really well received. I think that it was very appropriately done, and was glad to see that there was good sort of dialogue about that, about his response in terms of the students. He sort of had a negative feeling about, this is his last year on the board, he actually leaves in May. And I think that he felt that all the things that he was concerned about for the past 8 years really haven't been addressed. And so that's going to be an interesting challenge for the trustees to continue their efforts to address the Greek culture at Carolina, but also not do so in a way that's going to detract from the students that are already in the Greek organizations. So that level of fairness is something that I think the university and the Greeks are trying to walk that fine line between. Also, we had, and we can talk these in more depth, but we had a vote on the 5-year transportation plan.
You cast the lone negative vote.
Yes, I did. I voted against that mostly because, well, there's a variety of reasons, honestly, and I gave sort of a long address to the board before I voted. I think my concern with that process was that students were never involved in the creation of that plan. Students were involved at the end of it when they just wanted feedback. They hosted student forums, they brought students together, and it was great that they created that medium for students to provide feedback. And a few adjustments were made, such as there's an introduction of a night parking fee, which would come later, which all students would have to pay about $11. Before student feedback, it did include first-year students paying that fee. We did not really accept that because we don't even allow first-year students to bring a car to Carolina, so why would we make them pay a parking fee? So they did remove the first-year students, which increased the fee about $1.50 to cover the loss of a fourth of student population. And really that was one of the main adjustments that we saw from student feedback. Otherwise, the increase in parking permits, the increase or the proposed increases for the student transportation fee, the implementation of a park and ride lot permit, which really sort of bans the openness as to who can park there now. There's so many things in that plan that we disagreed with in student government, and that we actually felt a large population of students really disagreed with as well. The plan did not have any sort of visionary perspective in terms of environmental concerns. There was no outlook in terms of, are we going to someday maybe reduce car use at Carolina and increase the transportation in the region to reduce the carbon dioxide pollution from cars, et cetera. So there was a lot of student concern about this transportation plan, and so that's why I voted no. Also was able to introduce and propose the art innovation proposal to the Board of Trustees, which was widely accepted and I think really well received, and hopefully will be a guiding vision, a guiding document for the implementation of Innovate at Carolina, the implementation of the academic plan. I think what was really important about it was that it created and pushed a dialogue for the arts, a conversation that really hasn't happened at Carolina in a long time. Mostly since Chancellor Measer was here and the creation of the Executive Director for the Arts position. And I think it's been a while since Carolina has evaluated where the arts have been. And that's been a year-long project for me and for a lot of students involved. And to get that to the Board of Trustees in their hands and for them to approve it was just a nice culminating thing for the end of the year. So those were the main points of this trustee meeting. We did approve the academic plan, which was another thing we've worked on all year. Really, really exciting things happening at Carolina in terms of the visionary. Our economic downturn and the budget concerns are certainly breathing down our necks, But what's amazing about Carolina is that we're still taking a stand and saying that we value the quality of education provided at Carolina, enough so that we want to continue to mold it and shape it in a way that's going to better the future for Carolina students. So it was an exciting trustee meeting and a really nice way to sort of round out the year.
Right. So you mentioned budget cuts, which has been another big issue lately. We've heard numbers as high as 30%.
Right.
Can you weigh in on what kind of effect that would have on the students if a cut that large were to happen?
Absolutely. Well, 30% when we heard that number certainly came as a shock. I think that we were not expecting that to come from President Ross's office. To some degree, it's questionable whether that's actually a real number or whether that was a suggested amount in hopes of maybe generating conversations such as this, or getting folks on the statewide level invested in calling their legislators and actually taking action. So we'll actually see what numbers play out here in the next couple of months, and that will be something that the Cooper administration will really want to follow. But I think to answer your question, if we had something as great as 20% or more, I mean, there's really nothing that can be done, or there will be some serious dramatic results in classrooms, whether it's class availability, class sizes increasing. There could be potential for losing faculty to other universities if there's not a faculty salary increase. I mean, there's so many factors that go into a budget cut. System-wide, there are programs being looked at for evaluating and maybe getting rid of programs across different schools, looking to increase efficiency by offering courses at local other universities that students may not have at their own university. So there is sort of a real fear that a major cut would seriously harm the academic quality at an institution. I think students are probably going to see another proposed tuition increase over the summer by the legislation. As you all know, the Board of Trustees passed a 6.5% increase in tuition for both in-state and out-of-state students back in the fall. But I again want to maybe urge the Cooper administration and everyone else who's going to be paying attention that this summer there could certainly be another tuition increase before students arrive back at Carolina to address that lack of appropriations to the university system.
All right, so now let's talk a little bit about your last days in office. I know it must be really bittersweet for you. What are some of the things that during this last week that you're doing to kind of say goodbye to the position? Right.
That's a really interesting question. It is bittersweet. I mean, to have served in the capacity as a student body president of this institution, it goes beyond words to say how amazing this year has been and how grateful I am to the students of this university, to the administration, to the faculty, to everyone who's not only supported me, but the entire executive branch of student government, the entire Medlin administration. I think this last week I think next week will be the week where we begin all of the thank yous that we have to give out. I mean, there's so many people to thank, and I think that comes in that reflection period. This week, the priority really is making sure the Cooper administration is ready to launch. There's such an emphasis on a lot of continuation of projects that we've started, whether that be the admissions ambassadors abroad, establishing the Arts Council that was proposed, working on the Arts Innovation Endowment that we've started and fundraising for that. There's some things that we inevitably need to go over from administration to administration, and it's a top priority right now to make sure that those things happen because, to what degree does it mean anything if things end when you leave? So we're really excited. Mary's really excited to get started on some of these things, as well as obviously begin promoting her own projects and ideas. It was really exciting and also kind of nostalgic to see her team come together for the first time. Yesterday, we had a joint executive officer meeting where her secretary, treasurer, and chief of staff, and et cetera, joined our team for a meeting, and we sort of had the beginning discussions of a transition. And that was really, it sort of was a moment where we realized this is actually coming to a close. And so while it is nostalgic and bittersweet, I think it'll hit us more next week when the titles themselves will not actually be following us. I am excited about that last month of college and having time to sleep a little bit, having time to do some homework, but also I think it's important that as a senior, you begin to not only think to people who've helped you get to where you are, but to recognize those around you. The people that I've met here at Carolina, my closest friends that I live with, those that I see on a day-to-day basis, it's time for me, now that I'm going to have more time to invest in them once again. Make sure I don't eat a lunch by myself, schedule a lunch with a friend. Do the late night chats again till 2 a.m. Just hang out with the people that I love the most because time really is drawing to a close. And I think as a fellow senior, you may also recognize that. And while we're all sort of wondering what we're going to be doing next year, or if you already know what you're doing next year, I think that last month in college, right before graduation, is going to be filled with just creating memories, maximizing memories, minimizing regrets. So that's what it's all about.
Now, over the past year, you've spent a lot of time in your office in the student union. Is that kind of become a home away from home for you, and are you going to miss that office?
Well, let's see. There's definitely a couch in there with a pillow. I've spent many a nights in that office working till 2 or 3 a.m. and then having to get up at 6 and just deciding that going home was a waste of time. I mean, a home away from home in all senses of the word. I mean, I think I found a home in student government this year, not just the office. I mean, amongst the people. Whether it was anyone from the 23 cabinet committees or the officers themselves or our advisor, John Curtis, or any administrator that we came in touch with, I consistently felt that we had created a very strong family. On a day-to-day basis, we work together and we also argue together and we debate policy and we struggle through all the things that I think a family struggles through, which is coming together to sort of create that unity and sense of belonging. And student government absolutely was a home away from home. And while the office itself was certainly a place that I spent a lot of time, it will be really interesting to see how this last month is. I think it was fun to see Jasmine and even JJ in their last month sort of be like, wait a minute, I have free time. What am I going to do with it? Like, what is free time? Free time was always filled with, oh, let's get coffee with this person, or let's talk about this policy, or let's work on preparing for that meeting. Whereas now, I think free time will be, like I said, spent with just sitting out in the quad, sitting in the pit, hanging out with friends, and also, I'm here for Mary as a resource. It was nice to have Jasmine around that last month for those quick, last-minute questions. What is this meeting actually about? I don't expect Mary to know everything from the beginning, as nobody does. So, but it will be fun to take a step back and to just kind of live the Carolina life again.
Definitely. Looking back on your term in office, if you could go back and change any one thing, would you, and what would it be?
I think one thing that I would be interested in working on more collectively, we did focus on some safety initiatives around Halloween and around some of the larger events at Carolina to make sure that we were promoting safety. We worked on potentially a men's allies program. We also really worked with helping get One Act off the ground. We wanted to do training at Carolina, and we helped promote that. So there were certainly a lot of initiatives, but I think when an administration reflects upon its successes and its places where it could have certainly done more, safety is always going to be one area, because to what degree do you say you're done with the safety of the students at Carolina? You've promoted everything you can. I think that we were lucky this year to not have any major catastrophes or serious upsets that were on a large scale. But that doesn't mean that the little things didn't happen. Whether it was domestic or sexual violence or concerns of robbery or theft, etc. I mean, there are always going to be things on a campus that can be addressed, and whether that's providing education or actually creating some sort of program or resources. So while I think we did accomplish the platform that we had for safety, there's certainly always time for new innovations and new ideas in safety that I think any administration would say, looking back, that they'd want to do more to ensure the quality of safety for its students.
All right, and lastly, I think something everyone wants to know is, where do you go from here? What are you trying to do within the next year?
Yeah, so I'm one of those seniors who can't really answer that question yet, which is kind of funny. Which you find out from year to year, SPPs can never really answer at this point, because we haven't had the time to focus on the next year. You're always worrying about the next hour. That's a good question. I have my hand in a couple of things right now, waiting to hear back. Ideally, I will be traveling back to Asia to teach English. It's something I did 3 years ago and really fell in love with. I taught English in Thailand and sort of had a transformative experience, one of those external experiences during my years at Carolina, that I brought back and was able to really implement into my own life here. And I find that that transformation, that connection isn't complete yet. And so I'm really excited about hopefully returning to South Korea this time and teaching English for a year under a fellowship. So we'll see. Waiting to hear back. If not that, maybe a potential consulting job in Thailand as well. So clearly the theme is return to Asia for a year and then come back and do a graduate program in globalization. So we'll see.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
I appreciate it. Thanks for a great year.